The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You've always got time for Short Time.
Hey, it's Mario Lopez.
David Taylor.
Brent Metcalf. Johnny Hendricks. Tony Ramos. Bubba J.
Mike Golick.
Matthew Modine.
The one and only Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to the one and only Short Time Wrestling Podcast by the often imitated and never duplicated Jason Bryant.
It's episode 321 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. This one's going to be short and memorable, we hope, because we are stringing together some memories from the late Jim Koch, the longtime head coach at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside, who was laid to rest this week after he passed away due to injuries suffered after he was hit by a car while jogging in St. Louis while attending the Division I Wrestling Championships. And there's a theme here, folks. And we'll get to that as three members of the Becker family left words of inspiration and memories about the late Coach Koch. I'm going to start with a message that was sent in through our contact form from Dale Eggert. He is a high school wrestling coach out of Libertyville, Illinois. Sad beyond belief in hearing about Coach Koch's passing. As a high school coach in Illinois, I only saw him about once or twice a decade, but he would immediately remember me and we'd pick up our conversation where we left off. He doesn't forget much, especially people. I went up to Wisconsin-Parkside for my niece's graduation 2 years ago. The wrestling room is in the same building as the graduation ceremony. I stopped by the wrestling room to check it out. He was in there talking with the graduated wrestlers before the ceremony, thanking them for their time at Parkside. This was 4 years after he, quote, retired from Parkside coaching, although, as we know, wrestling coaches, they all stay involved with the program. When he was done talking with the wrestlers, we had a great chat. I could have told the wrestlers Coach Koch would never be forgetting them. I hadn't mentioned it for about 35 years, but I told him a couple of years ago that I had wrestled one of his Parkside guys in 1975. When I told him I wrestled for SIU Carbondale, he remembered the quad. He knew who the host was, which was Wisconsin-Milwaukee. He didn't remember my match, but when I told him who I wrestled, he told me all about my opponent, what he has been doing for the past 35 years since he graduated. It was always a pleasure to run into Coach Koch. I can only imagine the grief his families and his personal family and the Parkside wrestling family are feeling right now. This from Dale Eggert, high school wrestling coach out of Libertyville, Illinois.
Hello, this is Linda Becker from Hartford, Wisconsin. I guess Scott and I don't know where to begin. Coach touched our family back in February of 2002 when he was recruiting our oldest son, Brad, at the high school state meet. From that day, we knew he truly cared, not only for the wrestlers, but for all the families as well. Back then, I guess we never imagined how much he would be involved in our lives. He's been with us through the celebrations of good times, and most importantly, the support with the not-so-good times. I would have to say the favorite memory of Coach was the most recent one. We were at the D2 National Meet in Birmingham, Alabama. Coach Koch stayed at the same hotel, which he usually did, and was telling stories of the past. I was looking at my watch then, and I said to him, "We better get going before we miss Nick's match." Never did I imagine these would be the last stories I would ever hear from him. We will all miss his phone calls, see him at Nick's meets next year, and especially those wrestling stories he told. Those stories of Coach, they never got old, no matter how many times we heard them. He has been our four sons' second dad, and they surely will miss all those pop-up visits at his house. We know he will be in our hearts and minds forever. He did indeed leave us way too early, but we are truly blessed with the years he gave us and will continue to on the other side.
Hello, this is Kyle Becker with the University of Wisconsin Parkside. I wrestled with Jim wrestled for Jim Koch from 2003 and from 2008. Just wanted to leave some words of wisdom here from the great one, Jim Koch. He's influenced a lot of people and a lot of lives throughout his career as coach. I could sit here and tell story after story after story. Everyone that knew Coach knew he loved to talk. If it was a trivia, history, wrestling, family, anything, the man loved to engage in people's lives. Some of the best memories I had with Coach were in car rides on the way to wrestling tournaments. A 10-hour road trip would be nothing if you had Coach in your vehicle because the time just passed by so quick. On the way home from a tourney would be a little different, though, because we would catch him halfway through a sentence falling asleep. One of the fondest wrestling road trip memories I have was back in 2006 when my brother Brad Becker just got done winning a national title in Findlay, Ohio. Like most teams after the NCAA tourney, they usually stay overnight in a hotel, celebrate with family and friends and fans. But now with Coach Koch, he always had his teams on a tight budget. But I wouldn't want it any other way, because those are the memories you'll never forget. So back to the story. After Brett ended up winning the national title, we got back in the minivans and headed back to Parkside. On the way home, we were all excited that we had a national champ, and we were going to put one more up on the wall. So we were in Indiana, and Coach was like, "Man, it's getting hot in this van, isn't it?" We all were like, "Yeah, it's hot in this van." And Coach was like, "Let's hotbox it all the way home." So that is what we did. We hotboxed it all the way from Indiana to Parkside. Coach was drenched in sweat, and I thought at one time he was going to pass out. But he would never be the one to throw in the towel, because times were tough. I'm not going to name any names, but some people in that van were not happy. We were yelling, "Open the window." Coach would say, "Nope, you have to be tough." We made it all the way home to Kenosha without opening any windows or cranking down the heat at all. I felt bad for the driver, though. Needless to say, I also felt bad for that rental company we rented the vans from because it was covered in sweat. It's stories like these that touched my heart and that I will never forget. When my brothers and I visited him in the hospital on Wednesday, it was great to be there with his family as we shared stories for hours and hours. And I even got to learn a couple new ones that I never heard from his brothers Dan and John. This man loved the sport of wrestling and would be the type of guy that would do anything for anyone. He has had a huge impact on my family's life. My brothers Brad, Craig, Nick, and I wouldn't be where we are today without the guidance of him. He didn't just have relationships with wrestlers. He would get to know the family also. My parents would always pick him up on road trips for wrestling when he retired from coaching, and even got to know my sister, who was also a huge supporter for us boys. I have memories to cherish the rest of my life with him involved, and from a couple of those are from my three brothers winning national titles, from road trips, from him taking us to South Dakota so his nephew could teach us a trade-up right on mitigation, to reading a scripture at me and my wife Nicole's wedding, to meeting my son Brooks, and the list can go on and on. He has touched so many wrestlers, families, fans, loved ones in his lifetime. He will never be forgotten. I'm going to end with this. I love you, Coach. And if you have time in heaven, look over all of us. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Brad Becker, and I'm calling from Hartford, Wisconsin. And I wrestled for Coach Koch from 2002 to 2007 at UW-Parkside. I also have three brothers that have or are still wrestling for Parkside, who are Kyle, Craig, and Nick. Nick is going to be in his last year competing for Parkside next year. If I could say one thing about Coach Koch, is that he was more than just a coach. He was the finest role model, mentor, teacher, counselor, and friend. He was a father figure to most of his wrestlers when they attended Parkside. There are obviously countless stories that can be told about Coach Koch. But I guess when you coach for over 41 years, that will happen. I remember several things from Coach Koch. I will remember his technique instruction of the infamous wrestling move that he called the Cook Hook. I will remember when he wrote each wrestler's name on the money he gave them out for weighing food, so a wrestler couldn't claim they never got it. Also on road trips, I will remember when he constantly fell asleep mid-sentence when telling a story that us wrestlers probably heard 5 times already. I will also remember when he would fill up empty water bottles with orange juice from the continental breakfast at hotels that he would bring back home with him. This can also be said for the packaged food at the continental breakfast. Not only the coach's lounge at the wrestling tournaments, he was in there several times a day. I would also remember when he self-proclaimed that he invented the high five. Coach Koch, it should be known too that he never missed a Sunday church mass. I remember numerous times him searching for a church to go to on Sunday morning when we were out of town for a wrestling tournament. No matter where we were, that guy, he always found a church, and he attended Mass every single Sunday. Coach Koch, it should be known, too, that he just wasn't a wrestling coach at UW-Parkside. For a long time, he also taught many classes at Parkside. And, of course, one of the classes he taught was wrestling. So, of course, I took it, thinking it would be an easy A. I was sadly mistaken. Coach Koch, as we all know, was a great historian in wrestling and knew all sorts of crazy stats. On one of his wrestling tests that he gave the class, we had to name the top 50 NCAA Division I wrestlers of all time, and it had to be in order. Who came up with this list? Of course, Coach Koch did. But I'd be hard-pressed to believe that anyone else would come up with a better list. He categorized them first by the number of national championships won, and then by All-American placement. As we all know, too, as you'll hear, that Coach Koch had some quirky habits. I'll name here just 2. He would write down how many gallons of gas he put in each of his vehicles and how much gas was per gallon on each fill-up. He would also write down how much dog food each of his dogs ate per year. Like I said, these are just 2 of them. There are plenty more to go around. Now to get to more of the serious stuff about Coach Koch. Coach Koch was 100% committed and dedicated to the sport of wrestling and to his athletes, which is why he was inducted into several Hall of Fames. It was his life, and he enjoyed it. He always kept in touch with his wrestlers after they graduated as well. I'm sure he attended well over 50 weddings of his former wrestlers, and every Christmas, he would send out a 2-page letter to many of his former wrestlers describing what had transpired in his life during that year, and he always gave a UW-Parkside wrestling update. My greatest memories of Coach Koch and the ones that I will cherish the most were the long midnight talks about wrestling and life in general in his office, and also the road trips the wrestling team had with him. Everyone wanted Coach to be in their vehicle, as we knew there would be entertainment. I will remember him always telling the driver to bring it home to the barn, he would say. We never let Coach drive, as this wasn't his strong suit. He just stuck to running. I will also cherish my time with him after my wrestling career at Parkside, like when we went to the 2014 Division I Nationals in Oklahoma City, and also the 2016 Olympic Trials in Iowa. Bottom line, Coach Koch was a mentor in every sense of the word, and a great friend. He impacted thousands of young men in so many positive ways. He will be missed, and there will be a hole in the heart of many for quite some time. Jason, I just want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our experiences and stories about Coach Koch.
And the last story is a number of stories, and it comes from Maryville head wrestling coach Mike Denney, who during his career coaching at Nebraska, Omaha, and Maryville, developed a great friendship with Coach Koch, and he spoke at the memorial service and the funeral, and we caught up with him on his way back to Maryville, and here's what Mike Denney had to say about his good friend, Jim Koch.
I started coaching in 1969, and he started coaching in 1970. And, I turned 70 here March 20th, and I think July 16th, he just turned 70. So we had yeah, we kind of had that in common, you know, and he had spent 41 years, you know, there at Wisconsin Parkside, just the consistency and the loyalty and the dedication, you know, and I always had great respect for him, you know, just how he handled his wrestlers, how he handled officials, so, you know, we became friends and you know, just, I don't know, we just had a connection. Just over the years, that was kind of deep, and, you know, just respect, you know. We had this pact that, I always kidded him, we had this pact that we weren't going to retire, you know, and he retired on me, back on him. But, you know, I feel just good that he did that, because he had a chance to, you know, travel a little bit, step back away from wrestling, and you know, then he had a partner, you know, Donna was her name, you know, that traveled with him some, and, you know, so. But my wife and I, you know, his house, you know, he was a big Notre Dame fan. So Bonnie and I actually stayed with him. We stayed in the Notre Dame room, which is kind of significant. If you stayed with him, you got to stay in the Notre Dame room. You know, he had the bedroom decorated, you know, like Notre Dame, Notre Dame memorabilia. So, and then in his living room, he had this replica of the Notre Dame stadium. And then every ticket that he had it in the stadium. You know, it was an exact replica. You know, it's a small replica underneath underneath a table with a glass over the top, and he had the tickets stuck in the stadium where he sat. They had over 100 tickets, you know, so he's gone over 100 games, you know, so that was always kind of, you know, he loved his Notre Dame. I was kidding that this year maybe the tickets weren't so hard to get. But, and, you know, and the thing I said at the funeral, you know, he was a positive force. He was a gift to his family, you know, to all his, I mean, probably literally hundreds over that 41 years of wrestlers and coaches that worked with him, and, you know, just a positive force and a gift to Division II wrestling and just wrestling in general, and then to his friends and to me, you know, I mean, he was my friend. So, but I think, you know, the things that happened this year were really, really kind of a neat thing. You know, the Wisconsin Open that they host there at Wisconsin Parkside, and Greg Lewis, the coach there, was coming in, but they named that after. It's now the Jim Cook Open, you know, Wisconsin Parkside Open, Jim Cook. And then Jim Mikowski was really instrumental at the national tournament this year, you know, Jim from Minnesota State Mankato, of naming our Hall of Fame and our academic awards after, you know, it will be the Jim Cook. And he got to be, you know, sometimes, you know, you pass and then those things are named after you, but I mean, he knew that, you know, and, so that was good. You know, I spent time, you know, every day here at the hospital with his family that was here. You know, I said this at the funeral. You know, when you spend, you know, when you spend hours, days around the ICU, in and around, you know, somebody that's balancing between life and death, and a family member, you get to know people, you know, and his family, just a great bunch of, you know, the connections even that we had, Bonnie and I had it with his brother Dan, his twin brother John, and of course got to know, you know, their wives some, especially Betsy, which was John's wife. She was there a lot, and of course Donna and her. But you know, we were together a lot and talked a lot. I got to hear a lot of stories, you know. And then the Becker brothers came down, spent time, and you know, so I got to, and then we went up, you know, and they had a visitation, and I actually suggested to Dan, I said, you know, if you could get the funeral, to have it at the, at Wisconsin Parkside, if you could get your president, because we had done that, at our other place. Well, for one of our wrestlers, R.J. Neby, we had it in the field house there. And then for John Langen, Dr. Langen was, a professor and the dean there for 40 years, a great booster of wrestling. So we had his, and it really clicked, so, and they did. And, the chancellor, the athletic director, said, you bet, so it was, it was right in the, the visitation was in the wrestling room, and how unique was that, and of course, amongst all the pictures of the teams and all the wrestlers, came, and, just, from 12 to 8, and they had prayer service there afterward, and just, people got to, say some things, and it was really just, great tribute. It was a great tribute. And then, of course, the funeral was actually in the gym, where they wrestled their duels and stuff. So, and Father Kelly did a great job of it. He's really connected with the family. So it was really a great tribute. But, it just, we spent time together at the Division II. Everybody was seeing him at the Division IIs, and he was down at the Division Is, him and his brother, coming for the Division Is, and he's just out doing his jog. That was his thing. He did his jog every day and never missed mass. So we, there was a lot of mention of that, just he had his routine, and that was taking his run and going to mass. And, his wrestler said they never heard him say a curse word. And I never really saw him, really get on officials. I said in my talk, I said that the only thing I ever heard him say was "jeez." And when he gave 2 of those, it was like, the official really screwed up. I think the officials knew it. He never did, he wasn't one that really got on him, he just had a demeanor about him. And class act, always conducted himself with dignity in class. So, just he was a gift to so many, and he's such a positive force, within the whole wrestling thing, and amongst his family too. He took care of his brothers. He was kind of the one that stuck up for them, so yeah, but it was a great tribute, and I think there's tremendous healing in a funeral like that. That can be tremendous healing. A lot of wrestlers were there, former wrestlers. They actually formed 2 lines. Everybody that left, when the casket was taken out and everybody left, there was this long line on each side of wrestlers. What a tribute, and you could tell they were, and then of course all, they had a bunch of pictures and stuff. I had a room where I had all the pictures and each, a video or recording of a lot of ones giving a tribute to Coach. And my thing, I said, I'm in my talk, I said, I'm always going to refer to him as Coach, because my definition of a coach is someone who someone's dedicated to teaching and building, a leader who leads by example. And I said, that perfectly describes Coach Cook. And I just used some examples where I've seen that, him do that, just dedicated to teaching and building, and a leader who led by example. I never, professors never heard him say a curse word, I heard somebody after, I had mentioned that and actually one of the other, his brother spoke, and then one of his former wrestlers, but they said the same thing. And then I heard somebody, when they went out, I got to stop cursing. So, he was being an example, you know, even at his funeral. So, we lost. And one of my things I said that if God gave me one gift, is I'm able to pick out the good ones, and he was a good one. He was a good. His family, you know, his brothers, and you know, he's just the whole family, and Donna. So, you know, they're just good ones. They're just good people, you know. And he was a good one. I said, you know, he's going to come before the maker doesn't make him any better than Coach Koch. And he came before the maker, and the maker said, he fought the good fight, Coach Koch. He finished the race. He kept the faith. Well done, good and faithful servant. And that's kind of how I, you know, ended my talk, you know. So that's, you know, how I think people felt. So, you know, another thing I said, and just really got me, is there was a guy that, you know, at the prayer service, people stood up and just, you know, kind of gave, you know, their connection with him and what he meant to him. But there was a guy that just took him fishing. He wasn't a former wrestler. He was just somebody that took him out fishing, you know, kind of taught him how to fish, you know. And this is just, you know, later years here. I mean, these recent times, you know, but then he caught some nice fish, and he said, you know, and he kind of broke down when he said this. He said, you know, the time I spent with him, Coach Koch, you know, he caught some fish, but he was a fisher of men. I just kind of got my heart, you know, he was a fisher of men. You know, dang. So he was that. I'm thinking 41 years, you know, that just doesn't happen anymore. You know, 41 years at one institution, and in all the, you know, the people that, you know, through, geez, I'm sure he's been through a few ADs there and a few presidents and a few, you know, but he was a constant, you know, and all those wrestlers, there was really a lot of them there. Going way back, you know, in those early years when they were NEIA, you know, and you know, they're from Millbank, you know, the family was from Millbank. And great stories, you know, about it. The mom, you know, they'd lost her dad when they were, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And then the mom is when they actually got the wrestling program started at Millbank. She kept going to all the school board meetings because Jim needed to wrestle. He was, I guess, the one that she thought would be a wrestler, and that's how the program got started. And he wrestled at South Dakota State, you know. So his mom was crucial in starting the program. Amazing how that stuff, you know, really, and how it changed his life. You know, his life. And then was something his brother John said. His twin brother said, you know, he was born to be a coach. And he said, you know, without wrestling, I don't know. But he said he never thought he had a job. You know, this is what he wanted to do, and he never felt like it was a job. This is what he wanted to do. And that's why I said he's coached. He'll be always coach to me. To us, you know, to all of us. So just coach. That's what a coach is.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.